But talking about, of course, Toronto Ultra, they're the Giant Slayers. Let's be honest. They beat some incredible teams. So if you did miss it, check this out.
Chicago, Atlanta, Dallas, and OGLA. Now, OGLA might be like the worst team on paper on that list, but that is crazy. That's a crazy amount of teams to beat. The caliber of teams they beat to win that home series. You can't say that it's a fluke. That is just confidence building, one win after the other. Fantastic for the Toronto Ultra.
100%. I mean, impeccable stats across the board. I would have loved to see what would have happened if they faced Mutineers. They managed to slay 3 out of 4 of our top 4, which is just, I mean, I would go and say how, but they did it 3 times. So, I mean, they've clearly got something right at the moment. But of course, we do need to talk about London as well. And, you know, I'm always impressed by the content that comes from the Twins Twitter, but this was just hitting different. Have a look at this. Waskins tweeted out, "No stream tonight, spending the night with Bay. See you on the other side." He is giving, you know, his Rita a wine and dine situation. He's making sure that, you know, she feels comfortable. She's ready to go for playoffs. Pac-Man, is this the kind of, you know, the kind of treatment you would be giving some of your equipment before a big day?
I wish I got the kind of a treatment that this router is getting. Look how comfortable it looks.
It looks so comfortable. Those sheets linen, beautiful. We do, of course, have our benchmarks here for the London Royal Ravens. And when I think of the London Royal Ravens, I think of a lot of talent, but it just hasn't quite got there yet. I mean, it's so sad because they got so close, but they've been so far from a home series win. You know, big runner-up in Seattle. They just couldn't push it over the line. And I'm hoping that they've shaped up a little bit, kind of worked on some bits and pieces behind the scenes and really bring the A game to playoffs, because this is the time to do it. They don't have any other choice. They need to show
that
up
one big win, Lottie. That one big win where they beat Huntsman, you know, Dallas FaZe, so they can get that confidence. They just haven't been able to win that game. They falter every single time they get close. If they win that one match, I really do think that we can see them make a run, but we need to see them get that first big win under their belt as a team.
Absolutely do. We're going to head right now to predictions, Pac-Man. It's the most difficult one I think I've had to face so far, but these are, of course, brought to you by Sony's Xperia smartphone. So, bro, what are you feeling for this?
Well, I'm going to give Toronto Ultra that top team respect. They did just win the last home series, so I'm going to go with the Toronto Ultra 3-1 in this. I just feel like I just said, London hasn't gotten that big win, and I think this, right now, at this point, would be that big win, and I just don't see them getting it right here against Ultra, but maybe they prove me wrong.
Hey, you know what? It's hard because I struggle with this prediction. It really could, for me, swing it either way. And I would love to also, you know, give Ultra the respect they deserve after what they have done. But it would also be rude of me to not pick where I'm from. I have to go with London. I'm going to say 3-2. I think it's going to go game 5. But I've got to, you know, have my British roots here right now. I think it'd be rude not to. So I'm going to be going with London, of course. Now let's talk about our game fuel keys to victory. We're going to start with the London Royal Ravens. Pac-Man, what's Nameless been cooking up for us here?
These are Nameless's keys. Let's see what we got. They have a 9-17 Dom record. That is the second worst in the CDL. So obviously we need them to step up in that mode. I think their only team worse than them was the Gorillas, and we saw them lose it again. They're even in both Hardpoint and S&D, so Dom could be the swing mode / the deciding factor for them this tournament. Waska needs to go back into that MVP form after his dominant season. He's second in the CDL with a 1.24 KD. So it's basically they just need to step up in that swinging mode. They're pretty good in the others. Step up and close out this series against the Ultra.
Absolutely. And, you know, for me, Waskin is a huge part of this. And I think when the Twins perform together, they've said it before, they have a dynamic that just kind of goes unsaid. They perform super well with each other without even having to call out. So we're looking for that kind of dynamic coming forward for the London Royal Ravens. Let's have a look right now at our game fuel keys to victory for Toronto Ultra. What have we got here? What do these guys need to do to pull this one out the bag?
Methods has been underrated, boasting 5 events above a 1.1 KD and is the only player in Toronto with a 1.0 overall. Hemi versus Waskin in S&D is a big matchup. He has to win the sniper battle. I do agree that in that S&D, they both snipe so often that sniper battle could be the deciding factor. I just think both teams are pretty solid, and both those guys have proven to be the most consistent snipers in the league, so we will see.
We will see. I really do hope that we have an S&D on Piccadilly, because Wuskins always pulls it out of the bag on Piccadilly, and I would love to see Ultra, Cammy and him head to head there. I think that would be awesome. But it is time, Pac-Man. We have said all we can say about these first two matchups we had today for the day 2 of the CDL playoffs, of course. It's now time to hand over to our wonderful casters. It's Lando and Study. So let's get into this one.
Lottie, yes, it's going to be a fantastic series. Lonnie and Pac-Man, all the best. But Study, we saw Nameless leave in kind of pretty unfortunate fashion. I have no idea what's going on with him. Have you heard an update from Ant at all?
No, man, it had to be Chef Tony, bro. He was too lit, chefing it up in the kitchen. Couldn't really finish the product. I love that video, by the way. Zinni is absolutely hilarious. But on Nameless's behalf, I hope he's okay. Fire alarms are nothing to, mess around with.
Oh, definitely not, man. Like I said, we wish Nameless all the best. We'll be staying tuned to a few social media platforms, but in the midst, we got to talk about Ravens versus Ultra. And in the midst of that, let's actually go ahead and meet the London Royal Ravens. We talked with the London Royal Ravens. This has been a roster that has been very, very hyped up all season long, right? Kind of coming into the CDL, they were labeled as the EU All-Star team. They've made some, different roster moves throughout the season, adding guys like Zero and Shawnee into the mix. But who knows, Study? This very well could be the Ravens' opportunity. The analysts hit on it perfectly. The biggest issue that these guys have dealt with is that when they face off against the big dogs, they end up falling short, right? An 0-9 record versus kind of some of the top teams in the game. And you never know, man. Champs could be their opportunity to turn things around.
Oh, yeah, definitely. One game mode that I'm looking specifically for these guys to just put their focus in on the time that they had off is that domination. You saw that stat, second worst in the entire CDL, right in front of the LA Gorillas. And that's just that backbone game mode where they need to be able to step up. When they're going up against these top teams, all of them are really good at hard point. So if you go down 0-1, unfortunately, even if you win that search and destroy, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage going into that map number 3 because you guys are just not good at domination. So hopefully, going into champs and towards playoff this weekend, they've been improving drastically in that game mode.
Yeah, right. I think I've actually seen a few clips coming out from Scraps on Twitter, and a majority of the clips are coming from domination because that's definitely a mode they need to focus on without question, especially against a team like the Toronto Ultra, which we know can be so good, especially considering the fact that they looked at the Toronto home series. In fact, let's actually go ahead and meet Chef Tony and the Toronto Ultra.
I don't think Toronto's going to be ready for this.
That is quite literally worst case scenario if you're Ultra.
Toronto, they're meant to lose this game.
Toronto have not quite had what it takes.
And he goes huge for Ultra, and they get their first home series victory. What a map 5 it was.
After a year of disappointment, Toronto Ultra, Cinderella's going to the ball.
It is fair to say the Toronto Ultra have been on one as of late. It's the lean, mean Ultra machine Study. These guys have looked absolutely fantastic pretty much ever since the addition of Kleenex. They bring back in Classic for the last 2 home series, and they have been fantastic to say the least. We talked about them at the Toronto home series. The analyst desk hit on it, right? OGLA, they take down Chicago, they take down Dallas and Atlanta in a round 11 game 5. This team has been so good as of late. I think a big question coming into not just this series, but the entirety of playoffs and even Champs Weekend, if they can get there, is this mentality of, can Toronto Ultra keep it up?
Yeah, it's definitely, since they did have that home series win, it being their own as well, the confidence out of Methods, especially, is closing out in a 2v1 to win his team the entire event, you have to be feeling really good. Now, the only thing is, when they ended up winning that home series, it relied a lot on their search and destroy clutches. So if they're able to keep up that momentum going into playoffs and champs, then they should be set in stone to put themselves in a great position to win.
They definitely should. Well, here we go, Study. Game 1 Hardpoint loading up here on some Gun Runner. Hardpoint playoffs is here, man. I am hyped. I don't know about you, Study, but I am so ready to get into this series. There have been so many people that have been talking about this matchup specifically, and everybody is talking on how this one has the ability to go the distance. And I know we didn't get a chance to give our predictions, but I'll be honest with you. I think that this series definitely has the legs to get us to that final search and destroy.
Oh, yeah, definitely, you know, but it's all going to come down to me for that domination. Depending on how London come out in his first hard point, I'm pretty sure their record is a lot better than Toronto's on his first map. So if they're able to win this, you know, probably lose the search and destroy, tied at a 1-1, that domination, that's where it's going to be it for me. Because if they've improved drastically on that game mode, then they should have a good chance at making it through the playoffs and through champs.
Yeah, and I think too, kind of in collaboration with that, this game 1 is going to be massive for the Ravens because we talk on it that domination, if it is not fine-tuned, then it kind of becomes this scary situation where it's like, hey, we lose the game 1 hard point, now we're looking at a search and destroy where we kind of have to clutch up. So a big one for the Ravens and one for the Toronto Ultra that you looked great on previously. They won 3 out of their 4 game 1 hard points at the Toronto home series. But in the midst of this all going down, it's time for some P2 action as Dylan was causing some havoc in the back, but gets shut down by the Ultra.
That almost got scary there. London, they were pushing through that left side train tracks area, had a couple players back there trying to flip those spawns early, but there was a player in CleanX just staying alive as long as he possibly could, stalling enough time for his teammates to come back and eventually hold that backside of the hard point to give themselves, you know, a lead change here if they're able to get a great hold. And this is beautiful on the side of the Ultra.
Yeah, great stuff from the Ultra, at least early. The Ravens doing everything they can to knock on the door. But nonetheless, Ultra doing a great job at locking them forward. Wiskin tries to break on in. This will be pretty much the linchpin to hopefully settle a few of these final seconds, the 30 valuable ones to mention at that. And Zero, with that smoke, has the ability of being masked, as that's going to be 2 for him. Says goodnight to one of his old teammates in the meantime. Says goodnight to Bance, and now the rotation is imminent. A solid break from the Ravens as they'll grab the last few seconds. But if you are on the Ultra side, they're already set up for P3.
Yeah, and this is where it gets scary. You know, you saw London break in with the last 15 to 20 seconds there, and the entire time Scraps was already rotating towards that next hill. Was able to pick up a couple kills in the back to give his teammates the spawn in that back warehouse. But now it's just going to be a fight fest with who's going to win the most gunfights on this hill. You see CleanX picking up 4, holding it down for the roster, getting 5 now. He's on an absolute heater. Ever since adding this guy to the roster, the pacing that he's been able to set for this team is huge, man. And him being able to pick it up in the slaying department as well is even bigger for them.
Oh, yeah. CleanX, he stole our hearts last year at Champs with Singularity, and what? I think his teammates on that roster, Detain, Insight, Bids, also finished recently 2nd at the European Challenger Finals. And like I said, this guy, ever since adding to the Ultra, has been absolutely electric. Again, like we talked about, he stole our hearts last year at Champs, and he's looking to do the same thing this time around. Does get dropped inside the HP, decides to reference back, and does get at least somewhat of a final word there toward the end. But again, as you called it, Study, CleanX, his presence has without question been felt here for Toronto.
Yeah, and you're not even mad about that hard point right there. The game is basically tied. You're going to see Toronto fully set up towards this P4 hill. Now you see that number 9 player, which is going to be Cammy, just cutting them all off, trying to rotate out of the warehouse, picking up kills left and right. Just stalling enough time for his teammates to just pick up all this hill time uncontested. You see the London Royal Ravens are starting to get flustered. Can't really figure out how they want to get out of this situation. 20 seconds already in favor of the Ultra. Method's on a 5 spree. They're holding this perfectly, and this is how they're going to want to grow this lead out.
Absolutely. Chef Tony was starting to heat up. Thankfully, if you are the Ravens, you managed to break on in here toward Cargo, but it was getting a little bit scary. Now, the big positive for Ravens is essentially, Study, if they can kind of hold on, kind of mitigate a bit of the damage here at this current hill, be set up for that shipping warehouse up next, they could be in a good position. But any time is good time for London, as they'll be pretty much referencing back here shortly. Wiskin, kind of one of the final lines of defense, as the Ultra managed to, in some ways, break on through. But again, it's the Ravens that are set up for next.
Yup, and that's a good counter from the Royal Ravens there. You know, continue to hold those spawns towards that P5 hill, just forcing them to spawn. Forcing all the players on Ultra to spawn in that back crates area. You know, you're going to be able to pick up at least 20 seconds uncontested. It's looking like the Ultra are going to decide to put through this ride train tracks area. A couple kills are going in their favor. Hill's going back and forth. And it's looking like Toronto is going to be able to break in this with ease and force the spawns out from the London Royal Ravens.
And that SMG pressure, it's being felt. Classic, he'll walk away with 3 on a force free himself. Can he make it a fit? The Scraps doing everything he can to keep his wings flying, soaring around through the parking lot, as eventually he will get shut down. But nonetheless, a good ending here for the Ultra in terms of this rotation. And we talked about it, Study, that SMG pressure, the way that a lot of teams have really kind of added in another SMG. We talked about it a lot at the top of the show, the Rocker with Exceed. It's the pacing, and the SMGs, it's fair to say, they are firing great for the Ultra right now.
Yeah, this is a battle between CleanX and Classic versus Zero and Dylan. And CleanX is single-handedly just shutting them down. I'm pretty sure he's at 20 kills already on the map, and that's just absolutely absurd. Guys going off for his roster, able to put themselves up in basically a 50-point advantage. Now, you're going to see when you're rotating back towards this P1 hard point, it's going to be just a junk hill hard point. Whoever's going to be able to flip those spawns and go towards that P2 are going to be able to chain both of these together. No time is going in favor of the Ultra until I say that CleanX is able to hop right back on it, play his life perfectly. But they're playing this perfectly, man. You see CleanX once again setting a pace with that submachine gun, just pushing up left and right, picking up kills when he needs to. And this is a great start for the Ultra.
And that's scary, man. If he was able to toss out that smoke, get around on the flank for next, that could have been scary for the Ravens. But it's fair to say the Ultra, their presence has been felt, and now it's kind of on London, right? When we talk about this munition depot, this is on them to lock this time down, because this very well could tell the remainder of how this map is going to partake. Like we said, Ravens currently with that setup. It's about whether or not the Ultra can break on in. And one player you have to be aware of is that man CleanX up close. Does manage to drop the first, but quickly gets taken down. Classic, no issue with hopping in himself, as he'll at least be able to silence one. But it looks as if the Ravens are holding on somewhat for now. But just as I say that, CleanX, of course it's CleanX. The tissue is an issue, and he's staying alive for as long as possible. The Ultra are hanging out toward that backside and looking to contest for as long as they can.
And this is beautiful. You see CleanX 25 and 19. Just setting the tone for his team. Method's right behind him with 20 and 11. But it's all about CleanX right now. Setting that pace, running in there, picking up a two-piece left and right when he needs to. And if you ask me, Toronto Ultra, they put themselves in a great position so far on this map. They were able to break this. At least 40 seconds remaining. You know, time is going between both teams at that time. But they're able to open it up at least a 70-point lead. And so far out of the Toronto Ultra, they've been really good at executing their breaks, even if they don't have that early rotation. See players just trying to sneak by, play their lives perfectly. Classic trying to put himself in a position right there to at least pick up the beginning hill time. But so far, man, Toronto Ultra, they're really coming out on top here. You know, set by CleanX, setting that tone with that submachine gun. A couple kill sprees left and right. London need to answer back, especially on this hard point if they're going to bring this game back.
Yeah, it's continually relying upon the Ravens. Can they keep up this presence, or the Ultra just going to continue to break their way on in? They've had a few players, few stragglers trying to be on that flank, and it looks as, again, back-to-back times, Bance is shut down. So good work done from the Ravens again, but nonetheless, lots of valuable time remaining, and if you are London, you cannot allow this to go the Ultra's way. Here comes Dylan's opportunity, manages to find a double, the second one with the knife. But Shawnee trying to do some work up close. He gets dropped as well. So if you are Toronto, it's kind of this same thing going back and forth. It's the Ravens rotating early, Toronto breaking in somewhat kind of toward the ending stages. Somewhat of a net positive for both of these teams. But needless to say, Study, the Ravens, they got a lot of work to do still to bring this one back.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Being down 60 points, you're rotating towards that P4. They're going to be able to pick up a couple seconds right off the rip of this hill, uncontested. But I'm just paying attention to that P5 spawn. You see all the players from Ultra spawning there, that #1 player in Scraps, trying to contest that, try to flip those early for his team. But this is good, man. No contested on the hard point for 25 seconds now. Only down 40 points. Dylan trying to finesse his way around these crates area. Fortunately, he gets taken down there. But if you're London Royal Ravens, 25 seconds remaining on this clock, you're going to have to try to flip these spawns, because we see it the way Ultra are able to hold their setups, even break hard points when they need to. They're coming out firing today, and it's definitely showing so far.
It is, man. These guys trying to keep up that same presence we saw at the Toronto home series. Like I said, a big question coming into this one. Their first match of the playoffs is, can they keep up that same presence? Can they be that same roster that we saw versus Chicago, versus Dallas, versus Atlanta, versus OGLA? Can they be that same team? And as we've discussed, game one hardpoint, it is massive for the Ravens considering their domination woes. The Ultra with an opportunity to possibly lock this one up. It is all on London, whether or not they can break here at shipping, as CleanX hanging out behind the boxes. Thankfully has some teammate support, and look at that, 4 in the feed. 0 as well gets cut down at the door. It is starting to get scary for London right now. They have to try to make something happen here toward the later stages because this game is about to break open. CleanX does get dropped. Bance is still hanging out and toward this top box position, but London, you're starting to run out of time. 10 more seconds. This one's locked up here, Study.
Yeah, they were just going big. Every single kill needed to go in favor of the Ultra there to hold a flawless hold. CleanX picking up 2 pieces left and right, just staying alive. I was really hoping that would have went to the next hard point so CleanX could get 40 and we could get some burritos. But they were able to close it out on that map number 1, man. CleanX really setting the tone nice and early.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the story for me throughout this entire hardpoint, was just the way that the Ultra came out. And I think, like you talked about, it was CleanX kind of in the early stages, being the difference maker, going on those early sprees, at least in terms of the engagements, was incredibly difficult to deal with. And again, it was kind of those collaborations, those hills back to back that really kind of started to set the tone. But what, 33 and 26 for CleanX, over a minute in the hill, definitely did a lot for the team and provided a lot of pressure that's fair to say the Ravens really couldn't keep up with.
Yeah, I love the pressure out of Ultra right there. They were able to, even if they didn't have spawns going into the next hard point, they were able to break it immediately with like 40, 45 seconds remaining. And that's just definitely on the sub work between Classic, CleanX, and even Bance, you know, just stepping up when they need to, staying alive in certain situations, putting themselves in great positions to be able to eventually link up with their roster and set up a pinch so they can spawn the opposite team out. And that's what they were doing the entire first map. Even if they didn't have the beginning time, they were able to break it consistently with each other, and that's exactly how they were able to take that first map, holding that P5 down to the T. There was not a single player from the Ravens who were able to break into that, and it could definitely shows that Toronto is prepared so far and showing a good showing.
Yeah, they definitely are, man. They've definitely kind of kept up with that same presence, kind of have lived up to what we thought could occur when we talk about that game 1 hardpoint. But of course, this is our U.S. Air Force Quickscope. Again, Study, both of these teams have been so even, really kind of throughout the entirety of the CDL, especially when we talk about certain game modes, right? I mean, both of these teams in hardpoint and search and destroy have nearly been dead even, but it is really about that domination that we talked about that has been the issue for London.
Oh yeah, the domination for London has always been their hit or miss game mode. You saw them pull out a couple St. Petrograds, you know, versus top teams. But looking at this map set right now, Ramaza Search and Destroy is map number 2, and this one is going to go down to the wire. When I was thinking about Search and Destroy between these two teams, you know, you have Cammy on one side, and then you have Wuskins on the other with those snipers. And you're playing a map like Ramaza. I wonder how impactful those are going to be on this map.
Yeah, that's a good point, right? We talk about this Ramaza map. It's kind of an interesting one. I feel like some teams still haven't yet to kind of master it. This is a particular map in Search and Destroy where you don't often see the bomb go down, just kind of based off the way the sites are laid out. But we kind of also got to talk about this too, right? The last time that we did see the Ultra was in that very impressive fashion where they're at the Toronto home series. They're in that game 5, round 11. Methods is in that 1 versus 2. And again, I actually had the chance to talk to him, Study, and his big talking point was, this is redemption for me, right? After all the times, after all the memes, the videos of him not being a clutch player, the Toronto kind of stigma of them not being a clutch team, it all ended in that moment at the Toronto home series.
Yeah, man, Methods has to be feeling really good. I'm pretty sure he's the only player throughout the entire year with a 1.0 KD overall in the CDL for his roster. And, you know, him stepping up big in that 2v1 clutch, even though it's basically a 2v2, which immediately turned into a 1v1, and he was just able to trade that effectively. But you have to be feeling really confident. But the only thing that scares me about their Search and Destroy is they relied on a lot of clutching up. So they like to win their matches either 6-5, 6-4, but those rounds can literally go down to the wire. I would like to see them perfect their gameplay, you know, close it out in some 6-2s, possibly some 6-3s. It's going to be all in the back of Methods, putting themselves in great positions. But I'm really excited to see how Cammy's going to be able to do without that sniper, especially on Ramaza.
Yeah, that's a great point to bring up. And I know we talked about a lot about kind of that previous moment at the Toronto home series. In fact, let's actually listen back with that moment with the Ultra and then a very, very intense final round.
2 versus 2. Can they find
Priest
the
has got
opening?
3 on the round. Priest has got 3 on the round. What else can he find? 25 seconds, 7.5 seconds to defuse.
Here goes Major Maniac. It's CleanX to deal with. He finds the opening. It's 1v1. It's 1v1 and Methods clutches again. He goes huge for Ultra and they get their first home series victory. What a map 5 it was.
Both top, I think.
Both top, I think.
Yep, line down low. I have low.
Go downstairs.
Still have low. Now.
Pushed out. Yeah, let's go through.
Both there. Come on.
Goes in. Let's go, man. Let's go, boys. Let's oh my god. Let's go. Yes.
It's great to kind of revisit what was an incredible moment for the Toronto Ultra. I heard so many different beeps. I thought we were listening to Nameless's fire alarm still going on. But hey, regardless, like I said, it is a huge moment for the Toronto franchise. And I guess you could kind of say, Study, at the beginning of the year, this was a roster that kind of came into the season with a 10-man lineup. There was a lot of talk on, is it going to work? They started to make these roster changes that a lot of people kind of looked upon as questionable. This was a team that started off kind of in the regular season, I think it was like 1-5 in terms of their record. They were at one point the last team in the pro point standings, and now they've got to this point where they're obviously in the winners bracket. They've kind of proved a lot of people wrong, and they're one of only 6 teams to win a home series this year. It was definitely a proving ground game at the Toronto home series, and again, these guys are just looking to kind of cater on, keep up with that wave coming into playoffs, and specifically this series here.
Yeah, the confidence out of Toronto have to be sky high, you know, winning their own home series versus 3 of the top 4 teams to be able to close out that entire tournament. You have to be feeling really good. But like I said, the only thing that scares me is that X factor in their clutch ability in Search and Destroy. If they're able to do that, then they should be in a great form once again to try to pull out champs as well. But going into the Search and Destroy, this is going to be scary for London because their record on this is 1-1 compared to Toronto, who are 6-4. So Toronto are definitely a lot more prepared, have a lot more awareness, have a lot more just overall abilities on this map to know exactly what they need to do. So it's going to be really scary for the Royal Ravens if they decide to go down 0-2 in this series, especially going into that domination.
We talk about the Ravens, kind of I wouldn't say the lack of snipers. When we talk about a map like Piccadilly, Arklov, you can definitely see snipers a lot more common. And really for both teams, S&D All-Stars, Cammy for Toronto and Wuskin for London, they're not going to have that luxury, that big boy to have to rely on. But regardless, off the break early, it is the Ultra popping on into this B site. The one player that could cause some problems, though, is Zero, as he'll have to reference back current 3 versus 4 situation as the Ravens look to figure out a plan of entry.
Oh, I already love the push from Ultra, setting the tone nice and early. With an aggressive B push, they were able to get traded out, but you saw the perfect positioning to take out Straps out of that BSC building. Now, this is a pretty difficult task for London Royal Ravens. 23 seconds going to be remaining on the clock. 1v4 for Wuskins. I know he's a godlike sniper overall, but there's highly no chance he's able to get that. And that's what you want to do if you're Ultra right there, to be able to secure that first round, setting that tone with the aggression that they were able to continue on throughout that first hard point. Definitely showed, and that's a great opening round for the Ultra.
Yeah, to kind of put it in perspective as well, we talk about a search and destroy map. Of course, the objective for the offensive team is rather to kind of get that bomb down. It doesn't happen very often when we talk about a map like Ramaza. In fact, you only see it about 38% of the time in terms of teams on their offense. Only 38% of the time do they get that bomb down. But when you do, majority of the time, you do walk away with the round. But again, Ultra off the start, looking hot. We'll see what the Ravens possibly have up their sleeves. Ashani will come through with the early nade. Classic instantly replies there on the Scraps. But it is going to be the Ravens attempting at that push over at A. There's going to be one man there. But regardless, it's Dylan punching in the digit. Zero going hunting. His Ultra are going to have to be on the rotation. That's what, 3 out of the 4 players aren't even near here. Cammy, though, the one player that was playing defense, does manage to get the pick on Deshani. Here comes Wuskin's opportunity, manages to shut down Methods. In the meantime, it's trades all around. Zero, the last man alive, or excuse me, Zero and Wuskin, the last two players alive. Thought that Wuskin had dropped, when in reality he's still hanging out, still afloat. 13 seconds left. Zero up close, has two players to deal with, but now it's up to Wuskin. Try to delay for as long as you can. Kleenex is right in front. Can he get the timing? He does. Wuskin falls, but he does exactly when he needs to, as the Ravens will hold on. The bomb explodes, and that's now a 1-1 scoreline.
That almost got really scary. The positioning out of Cammy, I thought he played that beautifully. You know, he was the only player at that A-bomb site, just stalling enough time for his teammates to eventually get back. He was able to pick up one kill, force it into a 4v3, but then he ended up getting traded, put down, and it turned into a 2v2 situation. But you just love the finesse right there out of Zero. He saw one player in Classic on that bomb site, was not committing to the gunfight, just stalling enough time from Wuskins to rotate on the map, put himself in a great position just to get the bomb guy off of the bomb, and they were able to tie it up 1-1.
Looks at the Ultra leaning on what worked for them last time. He got a pretty aggressive start for both Classic and Kleenex, and Dylan will be there to shut them down through the smoke. And they definitely helping in unison with it, but the Ultra maybe somewhat of a flank. They send two stragglers through B. One player's actually made it on the flank. That is going to be Classic. Bomb player does drop. Thankfully, there is going to be a receiving end to it, as Shawnee manages to shut down one as well. But the Ravens, in the meantime, doing everything they can, as the up-close fights will only continue, as Cammy finds another. Zero instantly there for the trade. The bomb is down. 40 seconds still on the clock, but it is all up to Chef Tony. Can he cook us up a nice little meal? Can he give us a highlight? That's really the question now. A 1 versus 3 would definitely treat the folks at home, but I'm not sure how likely it is here, Study.
I love the adjustments right there out of the Ravens. You saw Dylan, you know, they ended up getting taken down in that first round on that offense. They're able to close out this round as well, put themselves up in a 2-1 advantage. But Dylan making the proper adjustments there, knowing that they like to double push out towards that B bomb site. Gets a nice little Semtex in the archway, able to take down one. Classic, he was able to just run around that mid-map, eventually hit a flank, but that was all Dylan needed to do, was just stop that aggressive push from the submachine guns. You see Kleenex and Classic trying to take mid-map control nice and early, both on offense and defense, but that was a great adjustment out of Dylan.
Yeah, good adjustment from Dylan, good adjustment from the Ravens. Again, massive search and destroy for these guys. Domination by no means their strong suit, going down 0-2 coming into the Dom. Not comfortable waters if you are the London boys, but again, they will be back on the offensive. And we know Ramaza nades aplenty, trying to slow down those early aggressive pushes from the offensive team. And looks at the strategy from Ultra has in fact worked out pretty well. But in the meantime, kind of toward that bottom plat area, you're going to see Dylan pretty much roaming around, which is where you'd probably like to have someone like Dylan, considering how fast he can be with that SMG, how fast he can react to different moments. And these doors are open, and they're going to hear every single thing. Dylan does manage to stay alive, and due to kind of that player, which I believe was player number 2 here, Study, that was Zero. He's actually going to go and free up for that bomb carrier to rotate over to A.
Yeah, great plays out of Zero there. I love the positioning out of Dylan, just running around. I would have not liked him to do that with the bomb, but him just staying alive is everything that his team needs him to do. Zero getting in the positioning that he is now, able to take down Bance, now forcing into a 3v3 situation. Gunfight's going to go in favor of Classic there. Now it's going to be a 2v2 situation.
2v2, making a 2 versus 1. Classic up close. Classic gets taken down, as the Ravens will find themselves in a 3-1 position. Zero from the skies, making some highlight plays, and that man Zero cannot be understated. Study what a guy who was kind of added to this team late in the year, previously on the subliners. Actually got the offer originally from the Ravens, turned it down to go to New York. Later on gets benched by New York and finds himself back with the Ravens, back with his EU brethren. But ever since we saw him on this team, it has been absolutely electric. But from one EU player to the next, Cammy, that sniper rifle, we talk about it on a number of different maps for Mazda, not always highlighted, but that is the reason why this guy has been so good, and the reason why Ultra have been so solid in their search and destroys as of late.
Yeah, and that's why it can be really scary. If you're a sniper able to put yourself at a pre-sniping angle. Like, that's one of the most common things when you're trying to cross towards those 8 steps, just watching it from the sandbags. But he plays that perfectly, knowing that a player is going to be watching that cross on defense. Peeks to slow with the sniper, able to get 1, reposition himself in the backside of that archway, able to pick up 2, switches up to the MP5. He's got 3 on the round currently. I thought that the sniper wasn't going to be as impactful as it was so far, but Cammy definitely shutting me up for sure.
Cammy shutting us all up. Methods able to take down Zero. Shawnee last man alive, waving the white flag. As the Ultra, at least in terms of their offenses, they have, whenever they want to, they can just take over that bomb site. And again, it's Cammy with the sniper rifle being the overall difference maker, catching a few off over in Ruins. As that really is the major discussion point throughout that round is Cammy sniper rifle frees open the site. London, they're pretty much sent on the rotation. And again, we talk about it on Armaza. You get that bomb down, and I think it's like 75% of the time you walk away with the round victory. As we'll get to revisit now London. See what they have up their sleeves. That bottom middle flank is always going to be an interesting one. Just on the outside of the door, Zero decides to open it up, pre-fires through, and it looks as if it's going to be 3 in the feed for London. B bomb site, I don't want to say wide open because Bance is still here, but Bance could actually play spoiler if he can catch an angle. Looks as if he has been found out, though. What could have been a spoiler potential for the Ultra could be somewhat of a negative position, as now Bance left all by himself, gets cleaned up. A solid attempt, but it's going to be the Ravens coming out on top.
Love that. Ravens right there played that beautifully. You know, you had Dylan come around the pinch on that top middle area. They just broke in from every single door and were able to pick up 3 kills right off the rip. Bance was the only player at B by himself. They were able to put themselves in a position knowing that one player, they still had that B S&D building control, but they did not be aggressive towards that. They just put the bomb down, had somebody watching the top windows. Great execution right there out of the Ravens to put themselves up 4-2.
Great adjustment made from London. Now Ultra, the swing round. 5-2 looks a lot different than 4-3. Methods, can he come away with the pick? Meanwhile, the offensive attack is actually going to be over at A, and we have to keep in mind, player number 4, that's actually going to be Shawnee. Finds himself in a great position, takes down Bance for the first blood, and Ultra instantly take a look toward their backside, saying, where exactly did Shawnee just come from? The Scottish man, we talked about his presence in construction. He tends to like Ramaza a decent amount, and looks if he'll find his second pick of this round, trying to distance the Ravens as much as he can. The player number 6, that's going to be Kleenex, does somewhat manage to free open the site, but it's really about the Ravens who are coming in from that P1 position. Zero is aware of it, manages to drop the first, and now it's all on to Kleenex. Can Toby go big? Can he keep this game close? The swing round, it's massive. He's trying to look at every single position that he possibly can here, Study. 18 seconds left, doesn't have that bomb. A lot of work to do in a short period of time. Roaming around, looking at every single position possible. The bomb, like we said, in the middle of this A site. Takes shots at the first, cannot take him down. Kleenex falls short, and the Ravens continue to distance themselves.
I love the way that Zero so far has been playing this map. He uses his dead silence perfectly right there in that round to get across that bridge area and put himself on these construction steps. Caught one of the players on the opposite team running right through the front door, able to take him down. But you could just tell, like in Search and Destroy, when you're talking about Zero, he's one of those players that are always going to put themselves in the advantage and always play the right way. You see him right there, not even peeking, giving Kleenex the chance right there to even kill him. Staying alive, currently sitting at 10-4, just being the finesse king right now for his roster, and he's stepping up huge, man, because like we said, man, if they went down 0-2 in this series, going into that domination, it'd be looking really scary, but them being only one round away, Zero, like I said, sitting at 10-4, stepping up huge when the team needs him.
It's a great call, Stud. Zero answering the call, but how's that for 3? We talk about the Ultra needing some life, and that very well may be their chance as they run right into the line side of Cammy. The sniper rifle hasn't really been as impactful as you see on maps like Piccadilly and Arkalov, but Cammy is having his way. He'll finish this round off with 4, and the Ultra will manage to stay alive, but That is a perfect situation for Cammy in that moment. As he gets the opportunity, shuts down 3, and the rest is history there, stud.
I was worried about what Cammy was going to do with the sniper, but so far he's shown me a little bit of everything. 2-piece with a sniper, picking up the subs, 3 kills right there in a row. He was that single player that's just holding down that A-bomb site by himself. And Cammy so far sitting at 10 kills on the map, just holding his S&D KD to a very high standard so far. He's currently sitting at 11-7. It's looking like it's going to be another aggressive B push. But London, you see the way that they're set up. Taking that bottom red control, making easy adjustments if they need to be able to wrap out. Wuskins putting a couple shots down, able to take down 1 player. And he's able to get 2 right there, even with the nade. So this is going to be a little scary for the Toronto Ultra. That B push has been getting shut down so far on 2 offensive rounds. But now they find themselves in a 3v2.
Wuskins does a lot of the damage up close, but Bance on the flank does manage to drop Wuskin in the meantime. Up close fight, Dylan manages to win it, and now it's all on to Methods. A huge 1 versus 1, and now it's all on to Chef Tony. Can he cook us up something special? It's not looking to be likely, as Dylan will close things out as the Ravens will walk away with this search and destroy 6 rounds to 3. And now we've got ourselves a very, very interesting series study.
Yeah, we definitely do, man. Going into this domination, you know, I'll probably give it to Toronto, but just looking back at that search and destroy, there were a lot of 2v2 rounds, a lot of rounds that went down to the wire between teammates, and it just looked like Ultra didn't have that clutch factor that they had at their own home series. You know, I could be wrong. It was the first search and destroy of the entire event so far for them, but it's definitely a different showing out of Toronto right there. You can just tell they probably weren't as comfortable with it. I was really worried about Wuskins and Cammy without those snipers in their hands, what kind of impact they were going to be able to make. But you've seen players like Cammy still stepping up with the double digits. You know, on the opposite side, Zero stepping up huge for his team with that submachine gun, finessing around every time that he needed to, popping that dead silence, perfect situations around that construction area, just putting himself in great positions right there throughout that entire map.
Yeah, I think that you brought it up really well. It was like different moments where Zero was kind of being the big impact player. He was having those big moments toward construction. I think those particular little moments necessarily obviously kind of get highlighted in some ways on the stats because we see him finish 10-5, but it is also notable that a majority of the kills that he did find were kind of leading to round victories. So a big situation that cannot be understated for the Ravens, especially in this search and destroy. As we'll go and take a look at our U.S. Army tactical play, it is round number 10, and it's pretty much the early damage being done from London. The way that they closed this one out was impressive, and as much as I really enjoyed their B hits here on Ramaz's study from the Ultra, I think it's kind of fair to say the smokes get tossed out. I think it's in this moment where we saw the Ultra have a lot of success over here at B, it was somewhat expected from London what exactly the play was going to be, and based off of that pre-fire from Wuskin, it kind of let us know exactly where the Ravens' heads were at, which is pretty much what we've been seeing throughout the entirety of this game.
Yeah, that first offensive round out of the Ultra, you know, they caught the Ravens with their pants down, were able to win that, but they made the proper adjustments in the next two defensive rounds. You saw Dylan pick it up with a Semtex one round, and then you see Wuskins just pre-firing it through smoke, knowing that this is probably their go-to play, just trying to take advantage with those submachine guns, pushing out nice and early so they can get those positioning if they need to. But good bounce back map out of the Ravens right there.
Yeah, big bounce back map for London as we'll get to guarantee that game for Hardpoint. But like we said, domination is up next. Stay with us as the Toronto Ultra and London Royal Ravens series just got that much more interesting.
Dylan, he's too bloody strong. But at Zero doing damage. He's not stopping anytime soon. Again, Scraps has got his helper. Beautiful reads from Wuskin. Raven putting them down.
Gaming, the official controller of the Call of Duty League. Call of Duty League is brought to you by Metro by T-Mobile. Rule your day with the #1 brand in prepaid. The United States Air Force. Learn more at airforce.com. Save money at the restaurants you love with Grubhub Perks. Use code CDLPlayoffs at checkout to get free delivery.
In every battle, there is a moment. Most don't even see it. But for others, it's all they see. That move, that shot that separates legend from afterthought. That instance between your name heard round the world and total, deafening silence. Every moment, every battle only has two outcomes. And when it happens, only you can decide what is yours.
Tuning in for the CDL playoffs?
Want to win some free game fuel?
Use hashtag GameFuelCDL
Every day during CDL playoffs for your chance to win free game fuel.
And guess what? If you're lucky,
If you're lucky,
you're also going to win some swag from the CDL.
Let's get it.
let's get it.
Tweet at COD League using hashtag GameFuelCDL and hashtag promo for a chance to get Game Fuel and CDL merch delivered to your front door. Type Game Fuel in the chat all weekend long for more details. Study. I've been seeing a ton of people on my social media using those hashtags, and a lot of them have actually been getting rewarded. So you in the chat should make sure to get the opportunity to do it. I've even seen a number of different pro players doing it. So I'll tell you what, man, I've got that Game Fuel sitting behind me, but I'd love to take a chug of it, especially if we get to a lovely Game 5.
Oh, I would love it, bro. My favorite flavor is definitely the green one. It tastes like a regular Mountain Dew to me, but it just has all that extra energy for me. So whenever I'm drinking it, I'm wired to the floor, bro. I'm feeling good, man. So I'm excited, man. I'm excited.
Feeling good? I'm feeling good, especially coming into this domination because we got a 1-1 scoreline. Everybody's been talking about how this one has the ability to go the distance, and the big talking point was if London can walk away with either the Game 1 or the Game 2, because domination has not been a great study, right? We see what, a 23-24 record in Hardpoint, and 19-18 in Search and Destroy. Coming into this series, they are even in everything but domination. They are 11th in the CDL, just in front of the LA Gorillas, which is not something that you really like to talk about all that often, considering the way that they have looked in Dom. But Ravens, every single time that we come into a series with these guys as of late, it has been on, can they capitalize in the domination? I think it was yesterday, Pac-Man was kind of talking on a different team, but kind of specifically about if you're struggling in a certain game mode, it is so difficult because you're basically giving away a map to the opposition. And when we talk about playoffs, when we talk about what this kind of event means, the amount of money that's on the line, it is important to make sure that you are turning up everything. And it's fair to say for the Ravens, it had to be in domination.
Yeah, I hope to God that they spent their last month just practicing a lot of domination, starting off their scrims instead of hard points, starting it off with Dom, because this is their backbone right here. This is where they need to be able to improve in, and like going up against Toronto, this is going to be a really scary match right here, because you have players like Kleenex, players like Classic, who are able to just always be that nuisance at the opposing home flag. So if they're able to step up in their slaying department, you know that London Royal Ravens definitely have that capability, but it's just all about the finesse between the subs on this map for me.
Look at the Ultra already off the start. Scraps is having to play some hardcore defense as the Ultra instantly forced their way over into that A base, and it is going to be, I believe, number 9 in Cammy, who's still alive. He and Methods are somewhat hanging out over here, and that's going to cause some problems for London early. Again, they're trying to play that solid defense. Bliskin manages to shut down Methods, and it looks as if for now that push is taken down, but it's been 3 games back-to-back study where Ultra have come out hot.
Yeah, and that was beautiful, trying to execute that push, trying to flip those home flags right off the rip, but eventually it costs them right there. London Royal Ravens, they were able to pick up 5. Now holding this 2 flag set up around the entire mid-map. All they have to do is just play their lives, man. Holding the positioning such as bathrooms, such as this mid-pipe area, it can be such a great position for these sub-players. You see Dylan just playing his life, taking his time here, making sure he's able to help his teammates at that B flag if they need help. 2 kills are going to go in favor of the Ultra. But you see Dylan with that knife trying to neutralize that. Fortunately, he gets taken down. But so far, so good out of the Ravens, man. Holding the 2 flag cap, not being too greedy, not letting any players from the Ultra slip by and make it play. And they're playing this so far, so good.
They are indeed. And kind of based off that early push from the Ultra, that just kind of goes to show how much of a luxury it is to really hold on to that A flag, just because of the amount of little positionings over at C. As you talked about it, you got bathrooms, you got train tracks, a lot of places to hide, and a lot of problems that could occur with things like neutralizing at all times. For the Ultra, you've got to be aware of that push. They try to make it happen early. As you talked about it, they get shut down. And again, this is the London Royal Ravens pretty much utilizing their advantage. They currently don't hold any control over at B, so it's pretty much try to maximize your time at C. And it's going to be up to Kleenex to do some damage control. He's got 1 player just toward his right over at the box. Doesn't see him. Hopefully gives the call out, and maybe that Ravens player does get taken down. He does. That's going to be Wuskin. So a good attempt from London to try to make something happen. And again, when they try to do some damage over at C, it instantly frees things up over at B. And that's what London are doing. They're utilizing this side of the map to their advantage, and they're doing all the work necessary to keep it in their control.
Yeah, it was huge, man. You saw Cammy. He was that player that was laying behind that C flag, picking up 2 kills when they needed to. But that's good on the side of the Royal Ravens. Them being aggressive towards those crates area, being aggressive in bathrooms, forced players like Kleenex to wrap back and help Cammy, gave them enough time to rotate towards that B flag and eventually secure that. Now, it might get a little scary because you have a couple players from Ultra around this A flag trying to play for that spawn. Nance is going to try to go for this neutralization, end up picking up 1. Still not in their favor, but this is all you want from Bands right here. Just being that annoying player around their base, making them all try to focus back and wrap back. And that's exactly what they're doing here. A couple kills are going to go in favor of the Ultra. Probably a home flag cap switch right here. Yep, as I say that, spawns are going to flip. And this is beautiful, man, if you're the Ravens. You have a 15-point lead, 1:30 remaining on the clock. You want to obviously push towards the C flag, trying to build some points up in your favor. But I love the way that they're executing this domination so far.
Yep, Ravens doing a good job. Ultra trying to claw their way back in with just 1:20 on the clock. Let's go to an Astro Gaming listen-in with Toronto.
Nice. They're my card to be dead. Yeah, stuck on B as well. On B. He's going dead. They're going to spawn secret. Nice.
Yeah, I'm cutting over. I'm elbow.
Kill one if you can.
Oh, spawn secret on you, maybe.
Yeah, make sure we don't block secret. Can I watch the secret? Nice. Nick, can I watch the secret, bro? Elbow now. I'm still trying to watch it.
Elbow down.
Nice. One more elbow. Still in my card. And the heavy, that. Nice. One secret. Nice, good shit.
Yeah, on B. Try to hit some maze on that.
Back C on me, weak, on C, scrap. Yeah, one more on B. One more, 2B. I'll slice the weak secret. Yeah, I nailed it. Go ahead. No one's secret. All good, no one's secret.
That is one there on you.
Yeah, on B. Yeah. What's your boiler?
Elbow. In the right corner, elbow.
Elbow dead.
Nice. Tap this. Could be.
I'm on show, yeah. I'm pushing secret.
Elbow.
Nice. He's got a boiler.
No, I don't.
Go on, we come return.
I want to see here. Nope, he's up.
2 minutes ago was not looking great for the Ultra in this first half, but Study, they have managed to turn things around as they are going to have the advantage coming in to this second half. We talked about it constantly. They were striving to try and get control over at A. They finally managed to do so. They get that AC split hold, and now, like we talked about it, they've got that advantage after being down a majority of time. They've managed to come back, and they're looking good ever since they got that A flag in their control.
Yeah, ever since they had that 2 home flag setup, where they had the players from the Ravens spawn out towards that back C flag. Once the players from Ultra were pushed up, they were able to secure that B, eventually work on a neutral there. Fortunately, it didn't go in their favor, or the lead would have been a lot higher. But if you're the Ultra, man, that's exactly what they wanted to execute off the beginning of this domination on the first side, but they obviously couldn't get it. You know, a couple kills go in favor of the London Royal Ravens for them to stop that push, but they were able to execute that perfectly. You have Meta staying alive at that C flag, just forcing them all to spawn back left of that C flag, and they were just able to put them in the spawn trap for a little bit and flip the spawns on their heads. Now, this is scary for the London Royal Ravens. You can see them both now with the AC flag setup as well. They're looking like they're going to try to do the same thing that Ultra just got done, but Vance is going to be able to be at this B flag, picking up a couple kills.
Vance indeed. Ravens early, trying to get both that A flag in their control as we saw it happen last time to them. Can they make good on it? We're about to find out as we'll go to an Astro Gaming listening with the Royal Ravens.
I got needed.
Wait, I've got you finished.
I got needed, man.
Feedback on me. Yeah, I need to say box.
No, I don't.
Feedback,
Ben, Ben. Ben is P5, Ben is P5.
Watch out, watch the
One D,
P5.
218,
218,
218,
one you as well.
One
You might on half 4. DP, he dead. Wait, needed though. One pushing back.
I need it, Ben. It's half 4, Forest.
Dance. You play
Put
B.
it lofty. Come green dead. Come here,
Green ramp.
Let's get close, quick.
Green ramp.
Cammy dead.
Nice. Gonna be ramp on you. Wait till we get there. Bathroom number C. Bathrooms.
I need it, Ben.
DP ready. Bathroom dead. I'm dominated B.
Take it down. Yo, listen, I might try and go full left away. I might go full left away. Okay.
Yeah, stop it, boy.
I'm coming crates.
Nothing green street. I'll flash green street. Waiting in vent. We just need a bathroom.
Half 4 Kleenex. Deep right. Ben dead. I need it.
Green. Someone in you. One's in you as well, guys.
My bullet man. Fuck, he's close. He ran away.
You dead.
Let's go.
I'm watching you, Pinch. I got CV spawn and flash across.
Yeah, well.
I'll push it. You're ahead of me, guys. Get on Take your time. I should be here for beer. Yeah, we're gonna have to.
This one's coming down to the wire as you've had a number of different interesting plays kind of throughout this entire game so far, but it is right now rather a big change-up in terms of spawns as we take a look at player 1, player 4. That's actually going to be Shawnee and Scraps who do get that push now over at A. That is a massive kind of look for the time here study. As we talked about it, the Ravens earlier were trying to get from C over to A. They continually got shut down over and over again. Now they possibly could have A back in their control. A lot needs to be done, though, with just 2 minutes left.
Yeah, just going back to that listening to the way that London was communicating, you could just tell, like, when they got a kill by that B flag, they were just committing to it. They were not trying to go towards that A flag. Every time that they did, they ended up getting shut down by Ultra. And that's exactly why this lead is growing so big so far. You know, you had Toronto Ultra who were playing this perfectly, players like Clammy who were pushed up all the way on that right side crates area to be a nuisance, go for that neutralization at C. And if you're the London Royal Ravens, it's starting to get scary, man. You guys are not really good at holding that C setup. Once you have this A flag, you guys should be in a lot better position. One player is going to try to go for that neutral onto C. It's taken down. Ultra up by 25 points. A minute 30 remaining. You know, we're going to have to see the Ravens step up big, you know, with a couple neutrals. Probably a trip cap for a little bit. But the way that the Ultra are holding this so far, man, with all the positioning that they have, it's going to be a pretty difficult task to do.
Yeah, it's starting to look a little bit grim, to say the least, for the Ravens for now, as they'll do everything possible to try to break in onto B. Kleenex hiding throughout the smoke and does manage to find that one. It got a little bit close there toward the end, but again, like I said, the storyline continues. The Ravens, the struggles and domination only continue. They finally managed to break in over at A, but the time was just starting to tick away just a little bit too much. And this one should be in the hands of Toronto as time's starting to tick away. Zero doing everything he can, as he's been an absolute menace, by the way, throughout this entirety of the series. If there is a positive takeaway from this map here study, it has been how great Zero has looked on a force spree, currently sitting at 26 and 14. He's clearly been involved when we talk about engagements. We talk about the objective, but it is not enough as the Ravens do lose the domination. As we hit on it coming into this series, this has been a struggle for them, but they've kind of, well, I think they're 3-8 in their last 11 dominations. They're now 9-18 on the season with this loss here. It continues to be a problem point for London.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the captures on Toronto Ultra side. You have 10, 7, 7, 9, 8. And that's just a substantial amount of just neutralizing flags when you need to, capturing when you know you have the advantage. And there was a lot of that sub-pressure work that we were just talking about before that map even started. Kleenex with 11 captures, and that's just something you don't really expect. You know, if the opposite team is holding their proper home flags to the best of their abilities. But I just knew that the aggression on Toronto Ultra right there, especially with Classic, Kleenex, and Cammy, all going for that opposite home flag, being aggressive, being a nuisance, neutralizing when they need to, staying alive perfectly, stalling enough time for his teammates to eventually push up towards that B flag. That's exactly how I expected Ultra to play it, and now they put themselves up in a 2-1 advantage.
Yeah, and I gotta be honest, like I said, it was kind of a few different moments for me kind of throughout this this domination for the Ravens, where it looked as if there just wasn't enough pressure, or as if whenever a push was kind of being initiated, there just wasn't enough legs to kind of get it done. But again, it's the Ultra walking away with this domination, as we kind of assumed that they would. And now we're kind of thinking about this next hard point, right? It is this question of, can the Ravens stay alive? Can they keep this series? Can they force the Game 5 search and destroy? Because I'll be honest with you, Study, I think it's kind of fair to say if the Ultra win this game for hardpoint, of course they're going to win the series. But I think if London do it, if they were to walk away with this one over on Hackney hardpoint, we talk about that Game 5 search and destroy. You kind of like the chances for the Ravens on that map specifically, especially kind of given their history on a map like Gunrunner S&D. I think you like it, but it's about making sure that you can get there in the first place for the Ravens. It is about winning that one respawn, and I'm curious to see if it can be this one here on Hackney.
Well, going into Hackney, the way that the Ultra played that first map, they were just able to break every hard point, even when they didn't have rotation. So especially on Hackney Yard, you know, that first P1 hill is going to be junky, but rotating towards that P2, if the Ravens have it set up and they're not able to at least get a great hold for at least 30, 35 seconds and then eventually work that rotation, then I expect Toronto to be able to walk away with this. They had flawless execution on that first map when it came down to breaking those hard points or even rotating early, setting up pinches perfectly. So if you're the London Royal Ravens, obviously you're down 2-1 in the series. You need to go out and give it your all. Zero's stepping up tremendously for the roster, but in these moments, I'm definitely looking for Scraps and Wuskins, you know, that brother duo, to step up when they need to.
Yeah, that's a great call, man. Scraps and Wuskin, the brother duo, the twins, they've been absolutely electric as of late, as we get to see what Scraps in our PlayStation 4 damage dealt leaderboard, but it's actually Dylan who leads the way throughout that Game 1 hardpoint, finishes off with 3,518. Shawnee was right there, but in the end, it was the Toronto Ultra who walked away with that one pretty convincingly, despite what the damage will show you. Kleenex, his presence was absolutely felt, but as the Ultra, the do come out clutch, and we go from one hardpoint now to the next. As you kind of called it out, it is really going to be on that twin duo, I think, specifically here for London. I'm also kind of curious. We saw Dylan do a lot when it comes down to the damage in that first hard point. He's been a player that has been talked about so often in result with the Ravens, is that he's not the same Dylan that we saw back in Black Ops 4 with Reciprocity. I think it's fair you can kind of blame a lot of that on a number of different things, from the way the game plays to just a number of different things. But just in general, his presence hasn't been that same way. But at times, Study, we have seen Dylan start to take over. And I think if he can be that difference maker, if he can come out hot early, especially on that Hackney hardpoint, we talked about P2 and P5 specifically. If he can be a difference maker up close, I like London's chances.
Yeah, man, talking about Dylan, this is a player on Reciprocity last year who was single-handedly winning them games. When it came to hard points, he was dropped in 50 left and right. When it came to search and destroy, he was being that aggressor, setting the pace, picking up 2 pieces and 3 pieces. Obviously, going into this game, his role changes a little bit. You know, you have players like Zero, players like Shawnee, and also Scraps, who are just able to fill in gaps when needed to. And Dylan's role so far this year, he's just the first one in and just trying to cause as much havoc as he possibly can. He knows when he needs to play his life perfectly. And when it comes down to this hard point right here, especially with that submachine gun, rotating towards that P4 hard point and that bottom green area is going to be so huge for me. You know, Dylan is one of those players that can go off at any moment, and his team really needs him to step up here.
Yeah, they definitely do. We take a look at that prizing payout structure. My goodness, man. $4.6 million, 1.5 for first. Yeah, $1.5 million. That is a lot of cash and a lot of pressure. Does kind of get associated with it, my friend. As like I said, if either of our teams do lose here, if you're a fan of the Ravens, if you're a fan of the Ultra, the loser of this series is not eliminated from playoffs, but they are going to be in that elimination bracket. And as time starts to kind of go along, it is not going to be fun when we especially talk about that losers bracket. And, you know, Study, as someone who has made a loser bracket run, is in contention and probably should be the greatest run of all time back in 2014 with Envy. How difficult is it, my man, to make that losers bracket run, especially starting in that early round position?
Yeah, so when you're starting in this early round position, going into losers bracket, you probably lose a close series to make it down to that bracket. But it's all about one match, one map at a time in that situation. You know, when I was back with that Envy roster, me, Nameless, Rambo, and Merc, you know, our main reliable game mode was search and destroy. You know, we weren't really a good domination team and weren't really a good blitz team at the time as well, but our search and destroy was our backbone. So it's all about one map, one mode, you know, one game at a time for this roster. Whoever makes it to that losers bracket, because miracles can happen, and it's all about how you guys perform and how you guys look at it. You know, you might look at it as in, yo, we should have won the prior series, you know, we should have never been in this position, but you have to look at it like, I'm in this position now, what am I going to do about it? And it's all about one game at a time.
Look at this early play coming through from the Ultra. They send 3 through Office, and now they're in the midst of a fantastic flank that's currently going to continue, as they will pretty much instantly off the rip here, Study, grab those spawns, get them in their favor. Now they are set up for Tire Shop. If you've not watched the CDL throughout this season, it is constantly stated either on Hackney Dom or Hackney Hardpoint, Tire Shop. This next Hardpoint is absolutely massive for either of these teams. It is one of the hardest to break in the entirety of Modern Warfare, and now that the Toronto Ultra are set up for it, it's going to be great for them. But hey, if you're London, if you're going to lose that spawn, at least get some time at P1, which is exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, that's perfect if you're London Royal Ravens. Unfortunately, you guys are not able to hold that spawn there, but picking up at least 45 seconds on the first hill gives you at least 2 to 3 pushes to try to break towards that Tire Shop. So you can't really look at it as a bad thing for the Royal Ravens. It all depends on if they're able to execute this break, because the way that Toronto Ultra just flipped that spawn, it can tend to get out of hand, because Toronto Ultra look like they're really confident so far, you know, riding that momentum from their previous home series win. You see CleanX stepping up 7-4 with that submachine gun, and it can get scary really quickly if you're not the London Royal Ravens and we're able to get a dominant hold on one of these hard points.
Yeah, that's without question, my man. Like I said, Tire Shop currently in the hands of the Ultra, as they'll be giddy to have this one in their hands, as that score is quickly going to go back the way of Toronto. We'll see if London has any attempts with 18 seconds left. Their idea of wanting to engage, their idea of wanting to maybe try and move on forward is most likely not going to occur, as they'll lick their wounds heading into the next set of rotations. But again, you like that if you were the Ultra, and really, it is again, Study, this early start from the Ultra in every single game that we have seen so far this series, whether it's been in Search and Destroy, Hardpoint, or Domination, they are coming out early and quick, and the Ravens, they're currently 0 for 4 and holding on and trying to deal with that early pressure.
Yeah, you see Toronto Ultra, you see CleanX currently sitting at 10-5, you know, having a flawless hold on that Tire Shop. Now it's all about how London Royal Ravens are going to be able to rotate early and pick up as much time as they possibly can. Metis is able to spot one player, CleanX able to go in for that trade, and this could be scary for London, man. They had the full rotations there. Unfortunately, the time is not going in their favor, but they do have that green control going into that P4 hardpoint with only 25 seconds remaining on P3. London so far, they're playing this beautifully with 4 kills going in their favor.
Meth's trying to do some work toward that backside, as now Office will be the main target for each of these teams, and this is where things can start to get a little bit sticky, right? It's about that P5 rotation. Every single player on these teams are pretty much just trying to be aware of that focus, trying to be aware of those spawns, as that's going to be Cammy looking to fight for it right now for Ultra. Enters into a big 1v1 engagement versus 0, manages to walk away with it. So if you are Ultra, you're currently getting that time. You actually are set up pretty nicely when we talk about that future rotation as well. You like this for the Ultra right now, but again, it's on London. If they can break on through, get some of this contest fest time, they're going to be in a good spot. Scraps is hoping to lead the way. We talked with the Twins coming in to this series. They didn't get to play at Champs last year with one another. We saw some, pretty much a very memorable photo of when Scraps got knocked out. He tried to support his buddy, his good old twin Wuskin, throughout his run over at Champs. And now they're together supporting London. They've got a lot of pride on their side, and it's just a matter of, like you said, Study, one map at a time. If they can get things flowing, they're going to be in a great spot. And we'll see if London can keep it up, as they are lighting things up right now in Office.
Well, so far so good, man. Before this hill even popped, Methods was in a big contested gunfight versus at least 2 to 3 of the Royal Ravens players trying to flip that spawn going into P5. He was able to come out on top, picking up a couple kills. Obviously, Ultra lose that remaining jump time on that middle hill, but this is all you can ask for if you're Ultra. Same thing when it comes down to that P1 hill, rotating towards tires. If you're not able to at least get enough time there, you have the spawns going into the favorable position of the next hard point, and they're going to be hopefully able to have a lead change here. All the kills going in favor of the Ultra. London Royal Ravens need to find an opening here, at least find a kill. They're able to take down Cammy, pushing up that right side, but trades are just going in favor of the Ultra right now. They're able to swap out the lead. And CleanX, once again, man, sitting at 16 and 11, just really setting the tone with that submachine gun. On the opposite side, you have 0, 17 and 11. They're both playing really well. It's a good first rotation of hard points, but I would like London Royal Ravens to at least execute their holds a little more or play for the respective spawns for the hills that you know can be full 60s.
And to try to hold on to P2, right? That was the biggest issue for them throughout that first set of rotations. It was just how quickly they lost throughout Tire Shop. We'll see how aware they are of their flank when we talk about this next set of rotations as the Ultra are up early. And as you talked about it, it has been CleanX. The story throughout the respawns, Toby has been absolutely dominant versus really anything that he's faced off against as of late. But this series is definitely one where he's starting to highlight himself as running straight through the blender are a few of the Ultra players just trying to get out of that mid-warehouse position, but the Ravens are holding on well. They're not getting a whole lot of time at P1, but just in general, they're kind of okay with that, right? It's just kind of about holding on to that spawn for as long as you possibly can. Trying to break in right now is Dylan as he quickly gets shut down as well. Nothing answering right now for the Ravens, and again, it's kind of this back and forth conversation of if we're not going to have that next rotation, let's at least get time in this first one in warehouse, and the Ultra are doing exactly that.
Yeah, I love the way that the Ultra played this. You know, they didn't have the spawns going into the respective P2 hardpoint right off the rip, and they just decided, all right, let's just kill them all and just gain all this time and eventually push through. Gives themselves at least 40 seconds to try to get a contesting or a break on this next hardpoint. You know, a lead if the London Royal Ravens decide to hold this for a full 60, would only be by like 15, 20 points. And that's all you can ask for if you're Ultra. You held that first P1 hard point to the best of your abilities there. Now it's all about trying to execute a team push to try to break towards this P2 tire shop. A couple kills are going in favor of the London Royal Ravens. So far, they're having a good first hold and second hold as well to be able to hold this down. You see Scrap stepping up at an 18-11. When the team really needs him, he's showing up.
Yeah, Scraps, especially kind of toward the end of the season, has been absolutely fantastic for London. Really kind of throughout his last few years of his career has been looked upon as one of the best players in the game and started to answer the call, especially as of late here for London. Exactly when they need him to. He's been dominant, does get taken down through the middle of the map, but nonetheless, it is going to be London walking away with P2. Tire Shop, they don't lose it this time around, but the one thing for Ultra right now is can they keep London in the back of their base ahead of Smokestack? Unfortunately, not going to be able to do that as Cammy's looking to map people. That is something freaky, but up close, Cammy does manage to drop. Dylan manages to hop inside of the hill for the time. And back and forth we go, Study, as this one very well is looking to go the distance.
Yeah, London Royal Ravens, they were able to hold a full 60 onto that P2. Now they also have that green control rotating towards P4. And this is where it can get really scary for the Ultra. You know, time is starting to go in favor of the London Royal Ravens. You have that back spawn for P5, but you need to be able to make sure you're rotating towards that green because that's where Royal Ravens were able to at least bring some points back. And they had a really good hold on the previous first set of hard points here. They're going to be able to hit the 200-point mark. As I say that, a teammate does come in from Vance onto Methods. But if you're early rotation and if you're the London Royal Ravens, this is a good setup right now. You have a player in CleanX who's trying to be a nuisance in this hard point. Washington's trying to stay alive. All the kills going in favor of Ultra. And this is where it can start to get out of hand. They have the spawns respectively for that P5 hard point. If they're able to put themselves at least 40 to 30 points away from winning the game, then the London Royal Ravens are going to need to break, and they need to break it soon.
They need to break, and unfortunately, it looks like they might be a man down right now. Zero not moving on the map. We'll get confirmation on exactly what's occurring with it, but if you're the Ravens, we talk about the 6th Raven. Can they try to get behind their boys? Can London manage to make something special happen despite being a man down? It's unfortunate to see. Like, we'll kind of gain more information on what exactly is occurring with that, but Ultra up close. Classic manages to stay alive, takes down Dylan, and now that starts to get a little bit scary. If you are London, rotation has to be flawless. The rotation has to be on point, and Scraps is doing everything he can for the team. 26 and 15 just before we see him visit the respawn screen. The Ultra, they're set up for next. They've got 20 more points, and this one is theirs. Zero officially lost, and we'll see what London possibly has up their sleeve. Can they make the impossible happen? 10 more seconds left. Wuskin, everything he can to try to fire through the front door. Dylan toward the backside. He gets dropped as well. And with time ticking away, this map looks to be the Ultra. This series looks to be Toronto Ultras.
So Ultra, baby. So Ultra. They're able to close that out in the 3-1. You know, congratulations to the Toronto Ultra. They definitely played that well. Players like Kleenex stepping up when it needs to. I was worried about when it came down to that search and destroy with Cammy not having a sniper, but he's obviously still able to put up double digits. Now, when we go back to that search and destroy, it's just that clutch factor, man. They had a lot of 2v2 situations that they weren't able to capitalize on, and that was one thing at their own home series where they were able to, and eventually were able to win it as well. So that only thing for me out of Toronto so far, when it came to the respawns, they looked absolutely beautiful. But when it came to that search and destroy, when it comes down to those clutch rounds, those cringe rounds that need to go down to the wire, unfortunately, they weren't able to close those out, but they still able to close out the series in a 3-1.
Yeah, managed to close out the series 3-1. And again, it's a hard one, right, for the Ravens. Yeah. I know those guys have got to be feeling it. It was incredibly close down the stretch. As we have to take a look at our hardpoint reset rules, restart rules, excuse me, just kind of based off of the information that we know. They currently are not under that criteria, and this one will be going the Ultras' way. Again, it's hard study, right? It's hard, but at the same time, you have to kind of look at it and obviously claim the fact that it is the Ultras' victory, not the way that they want to get it done, but they do, in fact, managed to lock this series up and are still looking pretty solid, right? We have to kind of reference that this team pretty much throughout a majority of these maps did come out strong. I think there was a lot of pressure kind of on their shoulders to perform, especially after the Toronto home series. A lot of people kind of questioning, could they do it? Did they have the ability to do it? And at least in the maps that we got to watch, all the guys pretty much having different moments. A lot of players that were kind of hyped up coming into this match. Kleenex is one of those guys for me. They lived up to the hype, and I'm excited to see what they can do throughout the rest of the playoffs.
Yeah, man. So Ultra, once again, man, you know, just riding that momentum from their home series. You could just tell when it came to those respawns, they were really aggressive when they needed to. They executed their pushes. You hear the communication between Kleenex and even Classic. Vance was telling them, oh, that's a great play, Nick. Like, you could just tell, like, they were just so far ahead and they're really confident between each other. And it definitely showed throughout their series.
Yeah, it definitely did. They look like a well-oiled machine. So Ultra, indeed. As like I said, they'll walk away with this series. Feeling pretty good. We'll take a look at the scuff play of the game. And again, it was kind of in this big moment kind of toward the stretch when the Ultra were kind of performing late here over kind of at that smokestack hill. They managed to get the rotation, and they're pretty much just trying to keep London in the back of their base. Granted, they don't have zero on the map to really kind of do a whole lot in this moment. But again, you like the rotation from the Ultra. They made the necessary adjustments, and they get the job done here in the end. But I guess so they kind of looking ahead, if you will, kind of throughout the remainder of the matches. I think it's going to be the Ultra. When we talk about the winners bracket side of things, I believe they are going to have a game versus the Mutineers, what should be an interesting one, right? We've kind of seen a few of these teams match up previously. How do you feel about the Ultra's chances kind of moving forward and against a competitor like the Mutineers?
Well, the thing about the Mutineers, this is a team that's overall great in every single game mode. We saw them have a lackluster last couple of home series where it came down to the slaying department. Havoc wasn't really having the best of his abilities, but this is a team that's won multiple home series, and this is also a team that Toronto has not beat at their own home series. You know, they beat Chicago, they beat Dallas, they beat Atlanta, but they didn't beat the Fort team. So I'm expecting Florida to come out and show why they are still a top 4 team, and it's going to be a great series.
Oh, it is, man. It's going to be a fun one to watch. Again, the Ravens obviously enter into the losers bracket. We'll kind of see what possibly couldn't be inbound for them. But in the meantime, COD Mobile, by the way, it's a great game. You should probably play it. It's a fun one. But this Friday, be sure to tune in to the pregame show to catch our very own Maven Merc, Nameless, and Miles facing off in the first ever Call of Duty Mobile special exhibition presented by and played on Sony's Xperia smartphone study. I had a great time casting this with Lottie. I'm not going to spoil anything, but it is a fantastic exhibition to watch. A ton of different funny moments, and I tell you what, you get those 4 guys playing some COD, playing on some COD Mobile. It's always a fun time, and again, I highly recommend. Make sure to watch it. And there's some surprises in there. I'll just put it. There are some surprises. There are some matchups that I thought would go certain ways, and they didn't. That's all I'm going to tell you. But make sure to tune in for that. Again, study COD Mobile. It's a blast, and it's always fun to get the talent team involved.
Oh, yeah, man. COD Mobile, I remember I had the chance to actually play that as well. And it's just a whole bunch of classic weapons from old Call of Duty titles, old Call of Duty maps as well. It's just one of those games where if you want to go back in time and think you were 10 years younger, you definitely have fun playing it.
Oh, dude, absolutely right. I mean, I got a chance to kind of toy around with it a little bit, and I got the chance to talk to a little bit of the talent about it, kind of using those Xperia smartphones, and they had an absolute blast. They were kind of talking to me about a number of different things, the way the quality looked. It was a blast to watch. And again, like I said, you get those guys in a room together, it's always an interesting time. But again, kind of referencing back, this is our current bracket as we already talked about it. The Ultra, they get it done here versus the Royal Ravens, and they will advance to the next round versus the Mutineers. At the same time, the Royal Ravens will have another interesting EU battle versus the Paris Legion. The last time that we got to watch the Royal Ravens study was actually in a series that we got to cast. It went down to a Game 5, Round 11. Royal Ravens fans, I won't say anything other than that, but it was a fantastic series, and I'm looking forward to that rematch as well.
Yeah, man, I can't wait to see how Legion are able to perform. Yesterday with that 3-0 over the Surge, you saw Lucas stepping up in Search and Destroy when he needed to. They just looked like a completely different team. And it was one thing that they needed to work on was their hard point, and it definitely showed in that series yesterday. Hopefully they're able to carry that on, especially versus the London Royal Ravens, who are a great hard point team.
Yeah, Paris looked fantastic. A lot of things to kind of be looking out for when we talk about the kind of future of the playoffs. But it's only day number 2, folks. We've got a number of different things to talk about, a lot of different exciting moments to occur. But one thing I will kind of ask you, Study, before we kind of send it off here, is kind of in reference about the Ultra. Again, we saw a number of different positive moments for them, but was there anything that you thought needs to be worked on, anything that you've seen recently from this team that you want to see improved upon? I know you talked earlier about the clutches, the way that they have kind of gone down to the wire a majority of the time, which does kind of worry you. Is that a big factor, you think, kind of looking on throughout the rest of the playoffs and their and what could be their future competition?
Yeah, no, it's definitely, for me, it's just a search and destroy. We saw them try to perfect that B push on Rammaza 3 times. You definitely need to develop more strategy if you're going to decide to play these maps that we're not used to seeing you guys on. You know, so they're trying to cast these opponents off guard. Obviously, the clutch factor has a big thing and going into that search and destroy for sure. But just mainly for me, they looked flawless in their hard points. They were able to break those hard points right off the rip when they needed to, even if they didn't have rotations. Even when it came to the domination, you saw they had multiple players with at least double-digit captures, and that just tells that they just have that communication on their side. They're set up properly to set up for a pinch, even put themselves in a great 3-crab situation. And hopefully, man, when it comes down to that search and destroy, like I said, their clutch factor and their mid-game adjustments, having more strategies on certain maps is definitely the only thing that I can see Toronto Ultra needs to improve on.
Yeah, they say, search and destroy wins championships. I think that has never been more relevant than it is right now. But again, I think one thing for me that I was really impressed with the Ultra is kind of CleanX stepping up, right? I mean, he was an absolute menace, especially in the hard points. And we talked about it as you're starting to kind of face off against kind of the top 4 teams. We talked about Chicago, Florida, Atlanta, Dallas. Those teams are very, very difficult, especially off the rip. And I think if you are the Ultra, kind of looking forward, having someone like CleanX who was constantly stepping up for the team. It was about methods. It was about Cammy, those guys having big performances. But I think kind of having that third player, that guy who can be so dominant up close, I think especially kind of given the meta right now, given the way that a lot of our top teams work with how great those up close and fast SMGs can be, they can be the difference makers. And as you called it, they can be the ones who kind of set the tone. CleanX did it here in that series. And I'm very, very interested to see if CleanX can kind of keep that up and kind of keep on with that form that we saw him do exactly last year at Champs.
Yeah, I'm just mad he didn't drop 40 kills in that first hard point. Free burritos. That sounds so good right now, man. Let me tell you. But if the Ultra are able to keep up that aggression between Cammy, between Classic and CleanX, it's going to be a really difficult team to have. You know, this is a team who just won their own home series. They're coming in off a lot of momentum. Obviously, they're going to be going up against a top dog in the Florida Mutineers. And Florida Mutineers need to be able to respond quickly because the way that the Ultra just came out in that series, they looked a lot better.
What do you think about the Mutineers right now? I mean, like I said, they've been obviously a great team all year long. They've kind of had this stretch a little bit kind of toward the end of the season where maybe they haven't looked as good as they did kind of in that back-to-back situation. They now kind of come into Champs. There was a lot of talk on this roster specifically in terms of, are they going to be able to keep that same level of aggression? Where is Havoc going to be at? Where is the team going to be sitting right now? I know it's kind of hard because there haven't been a lot of broadcasted scrimmages really kind of being released as of late. But what are your thoughts on the Mutineers right now and how they're going to face off against this very, very currently solid Ultra lineup?
I like the Mutineers, man. This is a team that's won multiple home series throughout this entire year. You know, ever since the addition of Pharaoh and Awakening, you know, these are two players who just came in and had an immediate impact. Awakening looks like one of the best players in the game just with his awareness and his shot. But when we're talking about this team at the last two final home series, before that, they talked about how they had a little break from the home series that they weren't competing at, so they needed to get back in form. You know, they went through these previous home series and we're just not the same team as before. You know, a lot of inconsistency shown in a couple players, especially Havoc for me. When I think about Havoc and Search and Destroy, he's that playmaker, that X factor, able to put himself in a position with those submachine guns, picking up two pieces left and right, and also in domination. He just wasn't having that performance, you know, being a nuisance at the opposing home flag, you know, just staying alive around the middle map area, especially on Gunrunner, around that bathrooms, around that pipes area. So if they were just able to get more consistent with their game modes, develop a couple more strategies when it came to Search and Destroy, then Florida, I would have to put them over in that series because they're top 4 team for a reason, and hopefully they're able to bounce back and show us why.
Well, hey, we're talking about a number of different series. Let's go and talk about the one that's going to be coming up next, right? It's day number 2 here at Playoffs. A lot of hype coming into this series as well. One team has been hot and the other has not, right? We talk about the New York Subliners. We talk about the Minnesota Rokkr. One team has been on fire as of late, and that obviously is the Subliners, right? A team that's been looking great as of recently. They walk away with the New York home series W. They kind of, you know, falter a little bit at the very next tournament. They get 3-0 by the Paris Legion. It doesn't matter, but still, the Rokkr, right? This is going to be a very hyped up team study kind of coming in today. They announced the fact that they're benching Gutter X, they're bringing in Exceed. How do you feel about that changeup? And rather kind of give me your thoughts on this one here in this particular series.
Well, Nameless was talking about pacing when it came to God RX, and that's exactly what was so wrong with the Rokkr. They just didn't have that fast pacing player that they needed to be able to keep the tempo up. And I think bringing in Exceed is a fresh of new blood, you know, fresh comms, fresh everything out of this guy. And he's going to try to bring it all. You know, him starting for this roster at Call of Duty Playoffs is going to be insane, man. And hopefully they're able to show why they made that proper adjustment.
Absolutely. Well, hey, we talked about it. The Ultra, they get the victory here versus the Ravens. Obviously, the Ultra fan base, they've got to be hyped. They've got to be pretty excited about this victory. And in fact, we've actually got Lottie standing by with Chef Tony himself.
I do indeed. Thank you very much, Lando and Study. I am with Chef Tony himself. Of course, Methods. It's so good to have you on, bro. And what a way to start playoffs for you guys. An epic battle that we saw against London Royal Ravens. And I've got to talk about, of course, your hard points, because I feel like CleanX was a huge difference maker for you guys there. The engagements this guy was having on the map, cleaning up kills, allowing you guys to move and rotate accordingly was phenomenal. But you all seem very aggressive as well across the map too, which was really great to see. So what have you guys been kind of like finessing behind the scenes when it comes to respawns?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're playing with that same pace and passion that we did in our most recent tournament victory. It was just went back to preparing best as possible, sort of doing our research with other teams, and I think those first 3 maps were a hard-fought battle. Obviously, they had our number in their Mazda Search and Destroy. They played it a little differently than expected, and obviously then in map 4, we ran into some unforeseen issues, and I won't sit here and say that we're super happy with that outcome. We're happy we won, but I just wish that there was something that could be done about things like this. This is the unfortunate reality of what we're doing, and I'm grateful to compete. At the same time, I'm gutted for my boys over there. So the first 3 maps were a good hard fought battle, and then the 4th map, I think it speaks for itself.
Absolutely. I want to quickly touch upon S&D though with you as well, Methods, because I feel like, you know, there were times that we saw some phenomenal things from you guys and some kind of down to the wire situations through S&D, 2v2s and clutch ups that kind of needed to happen, but we didn't see you guys clutch up as much as maybe you guys could have. So is that something that you're going to try and work towards, you know, going into the next couple of rounds through the brackets, and when you're coming up against opponents, maybe, you know, this kind of thing needs to kind of be solidified by your team?
Of course. I mean, Search and Destroy is a very integral game mode where it's not as simple as practicing clutches. You know, sometimes a split-second timing can go in your favor or not in your favor. And that series, we didn't have much luck in the Search. A lot of 2v2, 2v3 situations, like you said. In our Toronto home series, obviously, it felt like every single situation was going our way. And I think one of the biggest issues when you do well in Search is you sort of have to revamp your whole gameplay and like rethink your style of play, because everybody we play against has a lot of content to watch when it comes to our Search and Destroy gameplay. So just sort of like adapting, making new strategies up, trying to figure out how we can sort of differ, use the same strategies we were before, but just like a little bit of changes just to try to throw people off. It's we're just trying to find that healthy medium, and I think we learned a lot there, and that Ramazan Search and Destroy, and hopefully we can, fine tune it for the rest of the weekend.
Absolutely. It's been amazing to watch you guys, honestly. And honestly, a highlight for me throughout this season was actually you guys winning your home series. You did it in such a dominant fashion. You literally took down 3 teams of our top 4. That is absolutely huge. And then going on to win that as well in the finals. Great momentum coming into playoffs for you guys, but how are you feeling about facing the team you didn't see in your home series, which is the Mutineers, and of course haven't faced them really since their rise up this season?
Yeah, I mean, that the further you go in this tournament, the tougher the matches will be. We're playing against champions who have proved their worth and how good they are, and it's not going to be easy. We need to prepare as best as possible. It's also weird because obviously, because of our potential matchup, we didn't really practice against them for the past few weeks. So it's sort of like both teams have no idea what to expect. So it should be a bloodbath. I'm excited for it. These are the games that you live for. And, I'm just excited to play some more Call of Duty.
Love it. Thank you so much, Methods. It's been a pleasure speaking to you as always. And I absolutely loved you cooking up a storm for us earlier on in the video we all watched. Your chef skills are ones that can't be doubted. So love that. Keep cooking, man. Keep frying on the battlefield as well, though. So thank you so much, Methods. That's been your instant reaction presented by PlayStation. We are heading to a break right now. But when we come back, boy, do we have a matchup. It's New York Subliners taking on Minnesota Rokkr. You don't want to miss it.